Hello and welcome to Get Good. This is the next video in this series on Jain Zar, and I will be painting her hair, or at least starting it. I have already base coated it in the darkest red, just to skip that part. No reason for you guys to have to watch through that, and it's just a flat coat of the darkest red. I'll get through the paints in a minute. I am choosing to paint her hair in a very bright red, and I'm using the same red I used on the armor, where I just I darkened it and desaturated it a bit there. But it is the same red that goes there too, and it's the same red reds I've used on the helmet lens, just to unify everything a bit. And really, there is no reason to go out and get even more different reds. So for the recipe itself, this is very simple. There are right now 6 bottles, but the 2 to the very left you can disregard. It was just me when I set up the wet palette. I had a bit of a testing of consistency down there. But the 4 colors that I am using are, you can see in the right top, I have the burnt red that I've used before, the Vallejo one. Then underneath that, also in the right side, I have Mephiston red, which is a bit lighter. It's a Citadel color. The last 2 are also Citadel colors. I have left top Evil Sun's Scarlet, and then under that one I have a red, or it's kind of a dark orangey color, Wild Rider red. And those are making up the entirety of the scheme for the hair, or recipe for the hair. When I'm painting on, I didn't glue the hair part in, so some of the hairs are like stuck to the mask, and then you have kind of like a line going down. You can see it a bit pronounced, a line going down, and then the rest of the hair down to the base clips on there, or glues on there. And I've kept them separate just because it's not very easy to get to her back and paint things there if it's everything glued together. But I kind of wanted to get into putting some paint on, just enough so that at least I could see that everything was working out. So when I am gluing it on, I might have to go back and fix a bit of things because glue gets on. But that is not a big deal. It is quite simple painting this area, and the fix will be quite manageable too anyways then. To talk a bit about the lighting, the model is lit from the top left side. You can tell from the way lighting or the light falls on her arm and her chest and stomach. Same with the face and the gold on her, like the forehead thingy. And of course, same goes for the hair. That means when you're looking at the hair, I'm painting in like a bright spot, basically where you can see I'm touching the brush right now. a bit forward and a bit backwards from there is where the main bright spot will be. And you don't have to be too neat in the sense that because it is very textured of all like the hair strands, you don't have to blend too much at all actually. And I don't really. What I am doing though is on top of the base layer, I'm using the Mephiston red, and I'm kind of like painting in that entire spot, and I'm base coating everything in that area, all the recesses, everything in the Mephiston red color. Then so I kind of get this like a circle, almost oval circle, that where everything is that color. And then on the edges of that circle, the strands that are there, I kind of paint those also with the same color, but I'm not reaching all the way down into the recesses. Like you can, like every hair has a recess around it, of course. And that's kind of how you blend it out a bit. So instead of taking every strand and highlighting every strand up through like Mephiston red, then the Evil Sun Scarlet, and then the Wild Rider red, then you would have all the shadows in exactly the same color. But I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in having a light or a bright spot where the light reaches all the way down into the recesses. So that's what I'm doing from the start. You can see when I'm swirling on the wet palette that even the Evil Sun Scarlet looks quite orange. It is a red with a bit of orange in it, but not too much. So it is still very red. And when we come to kind of the end point, on the bright spot, that is what you see the most actually, is that color. And here you can see I'm doing kind of the same. I am painting all the way into the recesses too. I'm trying to stay away, like not going all the way down to the metallics, because I interpret the top of her hair basically as a sphere, which means the sphere, if you look at it from the front, because it is lit top left, you would kind of have the bright spot go from, if you imagine it being like a clock, it would go to from 9 o'clock until 12 o'clock, or even a bit over, so like maybe 9 o'clock to 1, or yeah, between 1 or 2, being very rounded there. So you kind of keep it in that area. And that's why I'm, because it curves around when it goes down into the, like the metal thingy she has on her forehead. I keep out of that, like the recess is going down there, and then highlighted, yeah, as I said, as a sphere. You can see here how I was kind of picking out strands that were in the shadowed area. Later on, I will be fixing that, because I'm always doing kind of like the same thing where I am highlighting up and I have an idea of where I want to put the bright spot, but I'm unsure exactly how big it should be. And I'm like, I know I want to go all the way up to Wild Rider Red, but when I start, I'm not sure how much I want to use, like how big an area I want to have in the Wild Rider Red. So I am, as I go, kind of like tweaking exactly how big I want it. So even though I am kind of picking out strands and building up here, I might have to go back and fix some things as I progress more. I'll talk a bit about the brush. I'm using an Artist Opus brush here, and this time I'm using a size 2, and I really like using this brush for this job, because normally I am using a 00, which is perfect for like the small superfine details on like eyes and all the bounce lights on metallics and stuff like that. And if I need to blend something out like very finely on her armor or whatever, I'm also using a very small brush there. But this area is kind of big, and when you're using a bigger brush, first of all, you can kind of cover a bigger area quicker. Not kind of, you can. But also you get to have more paint in the belly, which means that because you have more paint, it stays wet longer, and you can like go over areas more, like building up a bit, and don't have to go back. So the whole process becomes a bit more fluid, I guess. So for something like this, where I'm constantly picking out something and going over it again and reevaluating, and I really like using a bit of a bigger brush. It's not like it's very big, but it is significantly bigger than the 00. But the tip is still very sharp, so I can make like small and fine marks if I wanted to, but I can go about a bit longer, and also it is easier to use kind of like the side of that brush to not catch like any other areas. Here you can see I'm already down to the Wild Rider Red, picking out strands in the kind of the main light area, just to see how many I want and how bright I want it to go. It is quite important to not go over the top, because if we talk about red a bit, like the color red in general, it is a bit different, because if you imagine this here to be blue instead of red, you could paint it blue and highlight it more, I guess you would say, and still have it read as blue, because blue kind of goes from like dark blue to light blue. Whereas if you are using reds tend to go from like dark red to either orange or pink. And that means when you're putting, like, if you go a bit overboard with your blues, you would end up with a hair looking light blue, but it would still look blue because, I mean, it's just lighter blue. But if you do it with the red, you end up with hair that doesn't look red. It looks, instead of red, pink or orange, whichever highlight color you use. So you kind of balance, you want to use some highlight color, and that is also why I'm not going any like brighter than the Wild Rider Red, even though it is an orange color, and you can see when I apply it that it is orangey, which is fine. but it just means you need to leave a lot of red. And that is one of the reasons why I'm kind of flooding the area with light. So I go like all the recesses, I also put the red in there, not the dark red, but the two lighter reds. And it is very deliberate. It is because I wanted to show up as that saturated, bright looking red. Because otherwise you would risk having like all your shadows in the dark red and all your highlights in the orange, which means you leave not a lot of the bright reds. And now it just looks like orange with very dark shadows. Not at all what I wanted. So that is the reason. You can see now that I've kind of picked out the sphere where I want the orange and the most light to be. And now I'm just reinforcing that sphere kind of. So if you kind of imagine the hair as having like a recess and a strand. So if the recess is one color, you want the strand to be the next in the progression lighter. So for example, if the recess is your the first burned red, then the hair just beside that recess, you want that in the Mephiston red. But if your shadow is Mephiston red, then you want the strand to be in the Evil Sun Scarlet. Same goes, of course, if the shadow is Evil Suns, then you want the Wild Rider red for the strand. So you're kind of highlighting with one step above all the time. And that's why I kind of went back here. I kind of watered it down a bit more. Not the Mephiston, the Evil Sun Scarlet. And made sure to paint that into all the recesses around the Wild Rider red. And then I go back and I reinforce again those highlights. So, and you can see here, I'm picking out the strands, but I'm not going all the way down to the gold metallic part. And now you can see here how I'm picking out those lower strands again, because I found out, okay, so the area just above it has turned a bit brighter now that I kind of anticipated from the beginning, which means I want to correct a bit here. So I just went back over it. Not a big deal, and it is kind of easy and freeing, just dipping into the color again, mushing more on, exactly like I'm doing here. I wanted the recesses even more opaque of a layer of the Evil Sun Scarlet, and so I'm just going over everything once again, and then if you let it dry for a few seconds, you can go back and highlight on top of that. And as I said, because it is so textured, these areas are so textured, it isn't extremely important that you blend everything out super smoothly. I suspect you could have, instead of what I'm doing here, you could have just kind of wet blended everything in the beginning. So you kind of wet blended your transition from all the way from the base layer burnt red to Mephiston red to Evil Suns to Wild Rider, or maybe leaving out the Wild Rider, but those three colors all over the hairs, and then you kind of pick out strands on top of that. It can be kind of hard to distinguish the colors in a transition in that way. So exactly where you would use one or the other would be, or could be at least, kind of hard. So that's why I didn't do it. But I suspect you could do it like that. And you can see here how I took a bit of a chance because I didn't want to wait too long on the paint to dry. But don't do like I'm doing here. Just give it a few minutes and then go back when you're 100% sure it's dry, because you really risk tearing the paint. And you definitely don't want that, because it leaves kind of like an unwanted physical texture. But yeah, because it had already dried on the strands themselves, I felt confident enough to go back and just reinforce. So yeah, you can see here I'm back at the orangey Wild Rider Red, picking it out, and now the hair is turned like very red, very red. And that is because I have so much red showing in the recesses too. So yeah, also when you're doing all kinds of other stuff, like it could be capes or armors or whatever it is, it is the same deal. Every time you do like something in red, it's the same. Like black and red are kind of the two colors where it is more important than any others, because if it's the same, if you don't leave enough black, you will end up kind of skewing the color into like the area is looking more of the highlight color. And yeah, because black is because it is very distinct, it's not as forgiving. Not like a brown going to a light brown or blue going to a light blue or whatever. It's not really black going to a light black. Then it's black going into a gray. So yeah, be careful, but it's not the end of the world, as you saw with what I did. If you kind of go too much or too little, especially if you go too much, you can mix yourself a glaze and you can just glaze over the area, and then you will knock all the highlights right back down to the red color again. And it can even be a technique used if you want to like a very saturated red. You can go for like over highlighting the areas, so it goes too pink or like too orange, and then you go over it again, just glazing over those areas, kind of putting a filter, using it like an ink. You can see here how I'm painting in again some more like red, because I found that I had made the bright area a bit too big, and then it went into shadow, like a shadowed area. So I thought there was not enough transition for before it went into burnt red. So I just went in with a mid-tone and redid it a bit, extended the bright area somewhat, and then leaving a bit less of the base coat. So yeah, it is a bit back and forth, but it is freeing work. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.